Hello, before we start the video, I've got a simple question for you. How many graphical iterations do you think Tanki went through? So, how many? 2, 4, 7? You might be one of those who think that there are only 2 graphics for Tanki, this one and this one. Well, I found 9 graphical iterations. Let's check them out. Only the OG remembers these graphics. This is how Tanki Online started. Flash engine, very basic and static. No animations whatsoever. It lived with those graphics for around 4 years, and people loved it. Compared to the other major tanks game at the time, World of Tanks, this game had simpler graphics. This meant that if you had a potato computer, this game will run fine for you. When Tanki finally got its graphics updated, many players cried to get the old graphics back. They suggested a switch option, and that never happened. We have the old Tanki graphics in the new Tanki now, and that is through skins. If you don't know, you can actually play the old Tanki in a website called GTanks Online. This is not an official website, and I don't know if they are verified by Alternativa games or not. I tried it and it looks safe. Look, there's even the old shells loading. But as you can see, I am lonely in here, and the textures are messed up. It may even stop running in the near future, because Flash will be gone from the world. Maybe you can play it if you organize a group play with your friends. A few years after TO release, Alternativa Platform, which is the previous name for Alternativa Games, already wants to up their game. In 2011, they showcased Tanki Online 2.0. If you never heard about this project, then you might be surprised to know that this thing you're seeing with your eyes is literally made in the Flash engine. Alternativa Platform have their own in-house engine, which is based on Flash. They had a lot of demos built with it for different games, but this one was the main focus. It looked pretty epic on Flash. It was a huge step forward for AP. And most of the players were looking forward for it. The game went into testing phase a few times, and things were looking good, from the outside only. Sometime later in 2012, the players were informed that this project is cancelled. Everyone was sad. If I remember correctly, the reasons were related to technical issues and limitations. RIP Tanki Online 2.0. The good news is you can download the 2 demos that were shared for this game and check out the game for yourself. Links for them are in the description. Special thanks to Vrato3D or Parker1972 for sharing with me a download link for them. Many TO players know that update 1.100.0 was a huge one for the game.
Hello.
Before that update, AP showcased a possible graphical change for the current TO. So this time, instead of creating a completely different game, they are simply updating the current one they have. Simply put, the game looked very, very cartoony. 6 September 2012. A long-awaited update was finally released. This was a huge graphical update for the game. It didn't just introduce a new style, which also looked cartoony, but also introduced some other effects as well. Now, as much as this update was looked forward by many, it was also frowned upon by many others. The graphics looked very cartoony compared to what they had previously. As I mentioned previously, many players asked for the old graphics to return in some form. That never happened officially by AP, besides skins, but it happened sometime later by GTanks Online. Quick note before we continue, iterations 5 and 6 are actually the same, so we have 8 iterations instead of 9. You might think that Alternativa Platform are finally happy with the graphics update. Surprise, they weren't. They still wanted to make a better looking Tanki Online, and they still want to do so today. This time though, they wanted to include animations for the supplies. The first prototype for this was shared in 2013. I have no idea which engine this uses. According to few websites, this was made in Unity. As far as I know, this was not shared with the EN community. Only RU got to look at it in their version of the Tanki Online vlog. Besides the supplies animations, it also included a small vibration animation for the tank. This gave the tank some kind of life instead of being completely static. I only managed to find Thunder Viking in 3D, but I found Firebird, Isida and Twins in 2D concept art. This is a non-official website for tanky stuff. You can see them with the familiar additional armor and increased damage cylinders we know from Tanki X. The turrets also have additional armor in this iteration. While trying to find if they made other 3D models of this iteration, I found more concept art and animation prototypes for this Thunder Viking. It looks like they spent a lot of time prototyping this style, until they decided to switch to something different. You will recognize this immediately if you follow Tanki Unity news from the start in the EN vlogs. This is the second graphical iteration of the new Tanki, which was shown in 2014. It still have one of many things they wanted to achieve, animations for supplies. This iteration also had a lot of concept art, and even 3D models. Each one looks different from the other. Some resemble an extreme futuristic style. They try to achieve animations with this iteration just like before, and they also try to achieve decals and stickers. They even plan to make some areas of the tanks flat for application of stickers. I find it funny that the shown decal on this tank is exactly the same as in the previous iteration. Alternativa platform had an old game called Combat Sector, in which you fight others with guns and such stuff. It seemed like Alternativa wanted to merge Tanki with Combat Sector in their new Tanki. We see this happen in some of their early videos on the EN channel.
Prototype using resources of Tanki Online and Combat Sector, another game of our company.
During this iteration, Alternativa also focused on making the game optimized for phones, but this was eventually crossed out.
And the answer is no, we are not going to tell you about it. Instead, we'll show you.
After a long time of silence in the TO vlogs, Alternativa finally showcased the new version of Tanki. Tanki X is when Alternativa finally settled down on changing the graphics and style. I found zero concept art of these graphics. I don't know if they shared them and I couldn't find any, but let's assume that they never did, for now. One interesting feature we see in the Tanki X graphical iteration is that the barrels of the turrets are modeled in a way that allows them to elevate and depress. I talked with Artcore about vertical aiming. He said it was tested few times and they didn't like it. Tanki X had one single graphical iteration, which is sadly going to be inaccessible in the near future. So, Tanki X is a completely different game, and it had a few graphical iterations before being called Tanki X. It will close by the end of this year, and it will be history for future generations. However, as I said previously, Alternativa still wants to update Tanki graphics today, and they showed this to us in episode 161 of the EN vlog. Anyone who plays Tanki Online knows that this game is in desperate need for a graphical update. Flat tanks and buildings, 2D bushes and trees, and overall dull looking atmosphere. Alternativa showed players in a Q&A their work on new TO graphics. What they showed was just testing how capable the HTML5 is to the new graphics. I have been requesting them to share with us an update for a while, because they didn't share with us an update for a while. And finally, on episode 223 of the EN vlog, they shared with us an update after a while.
Yep, we will remake tanks. It's a secret, but we are already working on a Thunder Prime.
This model looks even more detailed than the one shown on episode 161. Let's hope the new graphics won't ruin the performance of the game. I think it would be a good idea to still have the flat tanks for those who have weak devices. An option to switch between the two graphics, similar to what World of Tanks and Armored Warfare has, an HD and SD option. On 4 October 2019, TO uploaded EN Vlog episode 225, and it shows even more of the new TO graphics. They even answered few questions, which one of them was in my mind. Let's take a look. You can finally feel the tanks are kind of alive and are actual tanks. They don't want to do animations for supplies as they did in Tanki X, but there will be some animated elements. I assume something like engine fans or futuristic stuff. The tank tracks will be animated. They plan to bring Tanki X tanks and models to Tanki Online, and I am happy for this. In fact, I was going to suggest this at some point, but they already thought of it themselves. How about bringing tanks from Tanki Online 2.0 as well? I really want to play with this Thunder Mammoth. They are not only updating the models, but also the textures and paints. The textures will be higher resolution, which means they will be more detailed. Same thing goes for the paints. They didn't mention anything yet about updating the environment though. Let's hope that they talk about it soon. They could just take the models from Tanki X and use them in Tanki Online. Let's take a look back. Tanki was born in 2009 with these graphics. They looked okay at that time, but the cancelled 2.0 project looked a ton better. Still, they tried their best with updating the graphics, but really all they did was updating the textures and models a little bit. Many tankers disliked the cartoony look and wanted the old one to be back. If you ask me, I really wish if Alternativa took this approach instead. The realistic looking Tanki was the best one I ever saw. Either way, they tried their hand at almost realistic graphics with Tanki X, and it did look very juicy. However, optimization issues were raised up almost every single day. With Alternativa deciding to close the portals for that universe, we're left with the static and dull Tanki we tried to run away from. But Alternativa had plans up their sleeve from a very long time. And you can feel it if you played Tanki all these years. All these different prototypes and internal tests were a desperate attempt to bring the Tanki universe to a more lively form. Tanki X was the only successful attempt, yet it was a failure due to the mistakes they made. But nonetheless, there is a new attempt that is coming soon. But who knows? There could be more Tanki universes and graphical iterations in the future.